Okay,
Set this up.
agenda. Motion to approve the minutes, which I tell you, Liz, you do such a spectacular job with that.
She does, doesn't she?
Unbelievable. Do we have a motion? No one
I
interested?
move to approve those minutes.
Do
Second.
we, and with stars on them?
Yes.
They were great.
Pass one to Karen. And, all
I
right,
have one.
second?
I'm good.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, we have to go.
Oh, right.
around.
Hi, Jan.
Hi, Michaela.
Hi, Randy.
I'm Mark.
Hi, Liz. We're done.
That's it. Okay. Karen, you're on. You're the main attraction today.
I think that we're going to together be presenting kind of a brief PowerPoint that we put together to lead you through what the results are that we have so far. So we have the Survey Monkey results, which we'll go over today. We don't have factored into this yet the hard copy surveys responses. They are somewhere in Terry's office, the town clerk's office. He will be back on Tuesday, so we will get those on Tuesday and add those into this. So there'll be some modifications before a final report, which Karen is in the midst of writing right now, which would go into the housing production plan document when we're all done. So what we might do is just to go through the results as we have them so far. And Michaela, if you want to share that.
I printed that.
Yep, let me just join here.
Just to tell you.
Okay, great.
Before we get
Let
to
me
this point, the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission.
hide
called me back and said all the
myself
funds have been
here.
allocated.
And then
They don't have any projects.
I'll open this up.
3, 4 applicants, one qualified, and they didn't pursue it. So that's all done.
That's me.
It's a short report.
Give me 1 sec.
That's particularly bad news.
Yeah.
It's because nobody was managing.
Yes, they said they marketed it when it came out. It was a few years ago. And it got rolled over, was slowed down by COVID.
Okay.
Program came
Here we
out,
go.
But it's all done.
All right. So this is our housing production plan, the community housing survey and the results of that. It was open from August 18th till the 15th of September. We had 77 responses. And just to give you an idea of who the people are who did respond, we have some data on them. Not everyone answered all the questions, so they won't add up to 77 all the way through. But we had the majority of respondents were full-time residents. They own a home. They've been in Stockbridge a very long time, at least 11 years, most of them. And they tend to be older. And I mean, the majority, vast majority are 55 or older. There are only 10 responses that we know of younger than that. And their income tends to be quite a bit higher than what you remember that the median family income or median household income in Stockbridge is in the high 40s. So most of the people who responded to this were higher income than the median in town, and they are overwhelmingly white. So that's the kind of summary of who the responses, who did respond to the survey. The first question that we asked was, how would you rank the importance of affordable housing in Stockbridge? And 60 of the 75 responses were either 8, 9, or 10. The average of all of the responses was 8.4. So clearly these are the people who did respond think that having housing that is affordable in Stockbridge is important. Sorry for that kind of background information. But the next question we asked was, what issues concern you if Stockbridge lacks housing? And I haven't put them all in here, but I picked the ones that were the highest responses. So, and you can see a lot of it has to do with being able to provide services, run businesses, and being able to have home improvements and so on and so forth. That's the overwhelming concern that people have. There were a number of comments also in this section, and the comments tended to focus on the lack of school-aged children, age diversity, the lack of young families, and how they felt there was a need for expanding the housing so that we could expand those populations. Let me ask, what were the greatest challenges to producing housing affordability? The high cost of land and construction, the lack of local support, public will, the zoning, limited town property for development, the availability of subsidies to make development feasible, financially feasible, and then a little bit on the infrastructure capacity, meaning sewers and water supply. The next question we asked was, what kind of housing should the town focus on? And again, I didn't put in all of the comments I picked because it would be a long laundry list. We're happy to share the SurveyMonkey results with whoever wants to go into a lot more detail. But what I did here was pick the top 4 in terms of the percent of responses: cluster houses that preserve open space around them, multiple family rental development, small cottage style homes or bungalows, and ADUs. And the ones that got the least number of votes were none of the above, do anything, special needs group homes, assisted living and memory care facilities, and units that have some shared living space. I was a little surprised that a number of these for the assisted living and also for kind of the age-related housing really were very low on the response level. There was one comment which I thought we should keep in mind, and that was someone mentioned that we should build affordable housing, and I think they meant with a capital A from their comment, but stay out of the real estate market. And that I've shortened it a little bit, but that comment was basically, it's not the town's job to be entering the real estate market and prioritizing who should be able to move into town and who shouldn't. And we should just focus on affordable housing. So.
Doesn't that's a little bit of a contradiction. I mean, if you say, keep to your own, knitting, so to speak, and keep your nose on your face, but build affordable housing. I mean, that's a very big stand for the town to take.
Well, I think the comment was intended to say it gets very messy if you try to enter the market, the real estate market.
Well, yes.
Right.
So you think that what they really meant was you don't need to develop market rate housing or other, but they probably mean what we call workforce housing under what you have up there as capital A.
Yeah, I think that would probably include that from the comment.
Or did you get any feedback or comments saying something that would indicate people interested in being able to provide housing for people who actually work here?
There were a couple of comments, but most of them were directed towards, not having young families and tradespeople and not so much employees of the town and so on.
Can I make one more comment?
Sure.
Just on that comment that the individual made, I think a lot of us may feel that if we were to be involved in some kind of a housing development, that we would want a mixture of affordable and market rate to not create some kind of affordable housing ghetto. And so that development might, in fact, be in the real estate market for the market rate housing, whereas the affordables might go to designated people meeting certain qualifications. So
Right.
I would just say that,
This was one person.
yeah. I
You know, there
understand.
were tons of comments, and, you know, I've always said about these surveys, they're meant to inform, not to dictate.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of weighing them. But I was confused by this statement, to tell you the truth. I mean, it seemed kind of
They had something-
nebulous.
They had something in mind, like they
Yeah.
don't want the government messing with the private market. I'm
Yeah,
just suggesting
that's what that sounds
that, you know, if we do a development that has mixed, as market rate and affordable, we would be. But, you know, as
It
you
could
say,
be related
this
to
guy's not
zoning.
running the show. He's just making a comment. So that's all. I'm just making a comment on his comment.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'll leave that out.
Then we ask where the best locations for new housing development might be. And the overwhelming one was redevelopment of existing properties, which I presume includes the
Levon?
cottage era property.
Right, well, the one out, there's two. There's Elm Court, and then there's the school, the former school
Oh, yeah.
on 183. There's two big properties in our town now that are in play. Which they,
DeSisto.
DeSisto, thank you very much.
And then in addition to redevelopment of existing properties, do something that's close to but not in downtown, have individual projects in existing neighborhoods, and then undeveloped land was the fourth one. This one I found very interesting. The populations that you believe have the greatest housing need. And you can see it's young families, workforce, first-time home buyers, people on fixed income. And the bottom three were those with incomes at 100% of the area median income, and those over, but who are still shut out of private housing, and disabled individuals. The bottom spots.
That's interesting.
And what do you think are the most important actions and strategies for the town to pursue? So here, what I did was pick out the top 5, and then on the next slide, the bottom 5. So, but there are others also in the middle. And the one that got the most votes was inventory the town-owned property and identify parcels for housing that would be appropriate for housing. I don't even know how many town-owned properties we have, so that might be something that we want to do a little homework on over the next weeks.
I think when Patrick's not here yet, Janet, so.
It will be.
And he will be, so when he comes, maybe he'll have some insight to that.
I don't think there's one.
The second one was pursue adaptive reuse of vacant and underutilized non-residential properties, and that would probably include the school that you mentioned up on.
DeSisto. Right, 183, DeSisto.
But also the one, the theater one.
Yeah, look, the Levon.
Levon, you're
I think
right.
it's the Levon property that's on 7.
7, right. That's right. So there's
That's the one,
3.
you've been through that, you've looked
Yeah.
at it.
The third one was revise zoning to allow development of cottage era properties. And the other part of this one was to make sure that those revisions to zoning were aligned with what are Stockbridge's kind of values for land preservation and so on. So
One of the things that whoever answered that may not know is that we have a separate cottage era bylaw. And that bylaw basically doesn't have any restrictions on it. It delegates the entire decision-making to the 3 select people who can decide what people can come, the owner can come forward, excuse me, with a plan, and it doesn't have to conform to zoning. And it's in the discretion.
And I think the challenge with that is no one knows about that. Because we didn't know about that. And we had a cottage and we didn't know that you could,
Well, no, cottage era, that
Oh,
meant,
that's different.
that's the big guys,
oh, big
the
estates.
the Gilded Age ones,
Oh,
not the,
not
not,
an actual cottage.
not a real.
Okay. So I was going to say, they didn't help us at all.
It's what the gazillionaires called a cottage in the
I
1890s.
see. Oh, a summer home.
They had their
I
cottages
understand.
in Newport and Stockbridge.
Got it.
So you had to be 30 or 40 rooms to be a cottage.
Yeah.
Okay. The next one was allow two-family dwellings by right in more areas around town. And
However, Michaela just made a really good point. I know that it was a misunderstanding, but in fact, it's like sort of everything in this town. We're at two ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
We have older, big homes, but we have a number of summer cottages and smaller homes that we should be more lenient in allowing people to improve those if they're making a substantial improvement. I don't know, do you have authority in,
Oh, in the zoning board of appeals? We haven't encountered one like that where somebody was trying to expand a porch out there that went beyond
Or
this.
sometimes it's not even expansion, but it's changing something from 3-season to 4-season.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you're, if you're getting a mortgage through a bank, you have to have heat.
Right?
So it becomes
Right.
4-season, but there are places, a lot of those cottages don't have water year round.
No,
So you have to put in a
you
well.
have to put in a well. Yeah.
well, all of
Yeah.
which you had to do.
Yeah.
But there, again, in general, our mandate is not necessarily to change zoning, but
Right.
a lot of accomplishing the goals of this group involve having different kinds of zoning. And did it come, I haven't heard you say yet, Janet, but did it come up at all about two families having a substantial amount of interest or not?
well, the fourth one here is allow two-family dwellings by right.
Thank you. It is a little hard to read these
Yeah.
from
Sorry.
here. Thank you.
Yeah, I feel like I'm at.
And then allow more ADUs.
And not do
I'm not
it.
sure how many of us can pass the eye test.
I should mention, though, the housing production plan regulations specify that all plans address 5 categories of strategies, and a couple of them relate to zoning. So there has to be some kind of zoning strategy within the housing plan. I think that's going to be pretty easy to come up with a couple of them.
Well, I don't think that coming up with is what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking more of my friend 2 chairs down who sits on a particular board that may not be as open to,
I think there are ways to do things without changing zoning too, that we're not as aware of. And that's what we're going to have to find out from them.
okay.
But also zoning now only involves a simple majority instead of a supermajority when it comes to housing production. So that makes things a little
In
easier.
town meeting
And planning board.
and planning board, oh, okay.
Also, so if we put something in the, but they have to,
Approve.
the planning board has to approve it.
Well, not, well, we have to
With
go
a
through
simple
it and do that,
majority.
but then also it has to go to town meeting.
Yeah,
But
The
a
town
zoning
has to-
change.
Yeah, oh yeah, anything we change,
that involves housing.
yeah.
But I was thinking of the plan itself has to go
To us,
to you.
or come to us and we'll do it together. Show the needs and we'll review and see what we have already on the books and how that might work already, or what may need to change.
Has there been any conversation in the planning board about what we're doing?
No, because I didn't, but she tried to address it the other night, but I said, I don't have the results here. So until I have the results, I don't want to talk about just a bunch of stuff. I just want to.
I should mention, I did talk to Marie Rafferty and get kind of her perceptions about the plan. She's on the planning board.
Oh,
And I have been exchanging emails with Kate Fletcher,
okay, good.
to schedule a time to talk. She wanted me to look at this diagnostic report that the planning board is working on before I talk to her. So anyway, I wanted to just introduce myself directly and explain what we were doing and just get some early input, and thank you. Yeah, kind of.
But that's very interesting. You don't know what this is?
Well, Jan sent me the list, the link, but I got to say this week has been nuts, so I haven't had a chance to delve into it.
Kate said. Are you talking about Kate?
The diagnostic report was done, it was done with a consultant in 2019. It's on the town website under the planning board. So we should all probably go and read it. So we're familiar with
And what's it called?
The diagnostic report?
diagnostic report
What is diagnostic of?
of the zoning regulations in town.
Oh, okay.
Did it just make some recommendations on how to kind of on clarifying certain things, reformatting, kind of assessing if there's a need for some kind of revisiting or, I mean, I know that the consultant who did it is a big form-based zoning proponent. But anyway, I'm going to look at it. I just, obviously, I'm
Yeah.
curious.
And I think it would be good for all of us to read through it because Kate had mentioned it to me earlier. And so we should just be aware of, because that is in the last 4 years. Work done by the planning board on zoning.
Do you know whether any changes were made as a result of it?
I don't know that. Do you know, Liz, whether
I
any?
was not on the board at the time.
When I talk to her, I can ask her.
Okay.
I mean, that's a natural question to ask.
It's also-
I want to know what it says
It's
first.
also so tricky too, because anything done before 2020, can stand, but it's also so much has shifted since 2020 in terms of housing and in terms of,
I'm not aware of any.
not necessarily zoning,
change in the last couple of years.
but, so much around it has shifted. So it's just interesting. It would be interesting to go back and read it.
Oh, yeah.
So this is the top 5 results from this question. What do you think are the most important actions for the town to pursue? This is the bottom 5. Jan, you want to read those?
Yes. So, and this one I didn't fully understand, maybe some of you do, to establish new requirements to better control tear down activity.
I think that means, don't tear things down.
Some things have been torn down that were historical, that were not supposed to be, and they just disappear. And you drive by and go, oh my God, but.
There's some towns that are, their more modest housing stock is eroding because people are coming in, tearing down the smaller units that were typically a little bit more affordable and building large McMansions in their place. And some communities have been making some zoning changes to address those issues. Like 92% of all of Needham's single-family house development involve demolition and replacement activity. So some communities are really dealing.
This is true on the Stockbridge Bowl.
Okay.
Yeah, on the bowl, for
They take
sure.
them down,
So
they
it's
build
demo
something much
replacement,
bigger.
yeah.
And it's happening in neighborhoods, where they're buying things and they're turning it into a second home as opposed to, yes, that's something that the planning board is looking at.
Well, so just to remind us, that was the bottom, the least number of responses to that one.
Yes, we shouldn't get too bogged down by that.
That's right. Could you go back to the top ones again? Okay, so the top interest, I don't think it's.
Town-owned property.
Well, you got it.
And that may also include things we might be taking for tax liens and stuff like that, not just.
Yeah.
Town-owned property, okay, right. So I believe a version of this came up at the last meeting, and Patrick said that there are very few, so my recollection is that he said there are relatively few that are being taken by the town.
I'm sorry,
There are not a lot of town-owned property that might be suitable for
Right.
housing. There is some.
He'll be here shortly.
Publicly owned, yeah.
And adaptive reuse. Interesting. I mean, I think there is a real interest in preservation as the nature of this town is such that people care about existing buildings and don't want them torn down.
Right.
Your neighborhood, Michaela, is particularly vulnerable, I think.
You know,
People buying and tearing down or.
Yeah, I mean, the plots are small, so there's only so much you can do. You can't really build like a huge place or anything, which is good. But people are asking a lot of money for 3 seasons, so people figure, well, if I'm paying $500,000 for a 3-season cottage, I'm gonna make it a 4-season, and I'm gonna use it all year round, you know?
Sure.
That isn't a particularly bad thing.
No, it's not a bad thing.
It's almost a good thing.
Yeah, so,
well, yes and no, because
Well, I
then
think-
you don't have affordable housing.
I mean, I think,
It's not turned into affordable housing.
Yeah, I
anymore.
mean-
It was an affordable cottage for somebody to be in.
Yeah.
For the summer to work here. I mean, I know a lot of BSO used to rent up there. There's not as many up there anymore because they've turned over and other people have them and BSO didn't pay all that much.
yeah.
In terms of adaptive reuse of underutilized non-residential property, look at the old town hall. I mean, they're going to turn that into the new Waldorf school. So that's a great use. You know, there you're bringing it, you're keeping children in town, you're bringing more in, it might bring more families.
Yeah,
That's what we want to see.
yeah.
But we also don't have a lot of, commercial space.
Well, we don't, but they do come up. And when they do, that's what we should be looking at.
You're right. Is there anything now that you know of in the market? Nothing.
Want to go back to the bottom,
Oh, good, there's Bruce.
the bottom half?
Howdy.
Oh,
Sorry, Jan, so these are the continuing the bottom.
we're doing the
Responses.
housing survey, Bruce. We're doing the results of the written survey. Jan's giving the report.
So if we go back to the bottom 5 on the important actions and strategies, the second lowest one was build a continuing care facility. The third one was waive permitting fees for affordable housing where appropriate. And then promote scattered site, affordable single and 2-family homes.
Oh, sorry, my computer died. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I don't have my charger with me.
And the last one was expand Heaton Court, which I found kind of curious that it was so low on the survey findings.
Almonds.
Although, Jan, I don't know, I mean, it is interesting, but the results seem consistent in that people are saying their priorities are young families, more children, more workforce. So it is consistent with, if those are the wishes, then why would they prioritize?
They said people on fixed incomes too.
Right, but why, they wouldn't necessarily then turn around and say we should prioritize like an elder care facility or things like that, because it sounds like if their wishes are leaning more towards younger families and things like that, that those would align with the kinds of things, right, that they want us to build.
The thing that I found a little surprising was I would have thought that given that a lot of the people who responded to the survey were older folks.
I'm not in your way, am I?
And, I'm one of those, so
Yeah.
I can say that, but I was a little surprised that there wasn't more interest in having some of the smaller
Yeah.
places that people could move into, whether it's continuing care or just small, cottage units that would be geared toward that. So people,
Although the income level is
Yeah, right.
such that they probably don't feel that they probably feel that they will have a plan for that.
yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah, and it's fun, I'm finding that when people go to list houses, and I've heard the story today, was that, they're talking about listing it, and then they go, well, I don't know if I'm really ready to go now. And then eventually, it could be years down the line, they do it, but they don't really want to leave home yet. And where they're going is someplace like Kimball Farm. They're not going to smaller houses.
Interesting.
What age?
Oh, 70s, 80s.
Somewhere where there's a lot of amenities. right? But not and help, but not necessarily a smaller property.
Anymore. You don't
Right.
have to, you know.
Shovel or things like that. Yeah.
Do we think that the survey really adequately gave them the opportunity to answer in that vein?
Well, I think there were a number of possible answers that if they had chosen those, it would have shown up a lot more than it has.
Patrick's here. We've been needing you, Patrick, so.
You.
Yes.
Isn't it nice to be needed?
Chair.
Manny? Michelle?
No, good, thank you.
Patrick, what's the moment?
I'm sorry I lost our survey to read.
Last slide.
There was just one which was a kind of summary, but I think we probably don't have to go through that.
I sent it to everyone, though.
You did?
I emailed it, yep.
But
The survey, the slides that Jan sent me.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I just did.
You've been writing more.
My stuff was started on a report and Jan just did a summary of that through a PowerPoint.
How about, since two people just arrived who didn't get to see it, how about Jan, we test her memory to tell us,
Quick synopsis.
to give us a synopsis?
well, let me just see also, hold on, because if I can,
Do the last slide.
We don't,
Maybe,
Oh,
can you,
she can't
can
do it.
you project yours on?
well, that's what I'm just seeing, see where it
Want me
says share.
You want me to read it? I have it right here.
she's just trying to make it so.
Yeah.
Okay, so she does a summary. It says, focus on housing for young adults, families, and individuals with fixed incomes, pursue cluster homes, multifamily rentals, and ADUs, redevelop existing and/or town-owned properties, preserve open space, revise zoning to allow development of cottage-era properties in keeping with Stockbridge characters. You have kind of four that you picked out as kind of being under common themes.
Patrick, could you correct me if I'm wrong on that cottage era property thing? It's my understanding that the select people have a choice, the select board has full authority to approve any plan, a renovation plan to a cottage or Gilded Age property.
Yeah, I mean, look, the experience with Elm Court is instructive, which is that some felt in the neighborhood that it was unreasonable outside the character of the neighborhood. So there was a lawsuit and they lost 4 years and the capital, landscape changed during that time and the deal fell apart. So I think it's while we technically can broadly approve proposals if we want to, I think it's really important that folks come along with us because if not, it only takes one lawsuit and, you can lose years of time to do things. So, but yeah, it's the only way you can do commercial in a residential zone, Stockbridge, is through the cottage area bylaw, and the only way you can override density or any of the other requirements of the minimum requirements.
So there's really, is there any need, do you think, to address the cottage era bylaw for any changes? Or it sounds to me like it's really quite a flexible document, but it places all the power outside of lawsuits in the board's hands.
Yeah, well, the rationale for cottage area bylaw was that it costs a lot to maintain these old buildings and that there's a benefit to maintaining the front lawn. So the perspective was we're going to give up something, which is we're going to give them the ability to get something done that you otherwise couldn't do in exchange for maintaining the front lawn and maintaining the building. So that was the grand bargain that is represented in the cottage area bylaw. One could argue for quarter acre zoning throughout town. You could argue if you want, I don't think it'll ever pass, but you could argue for it, and that would change the entire character of the town. There's only a handful of cottage area estates that are ever going to be developed. It was relatively small impact to save the historic structures.
So,
I don't think it needs any changes to answer your question. I think it gives some flexibility for places that need it.
right, as long as our board is wise and fair, right?
Well, the one thing they tried to do when they wrote that is get a housing tie-in. Steve Schatz told me that, and they couldn't get it done at the time, and we got it done last year. So affordable housing tie-in. So that was a good win, I think. Yeah.
Good. So there's really just the two projects, I think, in town that are the cottage era.
There's about 100 properties that were originally cottages in Stockbridge.
Really?
Now, because the way it's written now, there's a minimum of 80 acre requirement. So that limits the number, but if,
Oh, wait a minute, is it to be under that bylaw, you have to have 80 acres?
it has to have been built during a certain period of history and it has to have a minimum of 80 acres on the estate. I think they can glom together multiple parcels to do that, that they have to own. So, if you lower it to 40, it could go from 2 to 10. If you lower it to 20, it could go from 2 to 15. I've been number somewhere from a couple of years ago. I looked at it.
Uh-huh.
The more you lower the acreage requirement, the more there are. If you drive around, you'll notice there's a lot of big old estates in this town still. Yeah.
But those estates in general are occupied,
Privately.
right, as private homes.
Well, yeah, but Levan isn't. Elm Court is not currently. 37 Earl Lincoln isn't currently, And the worst thing you can do to old buildings is let it sit empty.
Oh, well, certainly,
Look at Old Town Hall. That's like, this is like, the cost has risen astronomically since it sat there for 15 years.
Patrick, one of the other findings from the survey was that the number one response for what strategies the town or directions the town should go in for housing was to look at and assess the town-owned properties for any that would be reasonable to consider for housing development. But I don't even know how many town-owned properties we have. Do you know that?
I think we could build 2 floors on top of this building. What do you think? We could do floor 4 and 5 or something.
Isn't there a 35-foot?
Well, with 40B, friendly 40B, No, I'm kidding. But I'm actually curious about the first question, Jan. Let's talk about that in a second. Right at the start, is you're saying that only 13% said that it was not super important to, that basically 87% said it was very important that we take care of Stockbridge, be able to take care of Stockbridge residents. And I think it's incumbent on us to realize and to explain to folks that the only way we can do that is with local money, okay? Because you take state and federal money and you have to open the properties up to anybody within the region. That's why there's a waiting list of 1,500 people at Heaton Court. All right. And how do we generate local money? We can now do it with the residential inclusionary bylaw, but as you just pointed out, the number of cottage estates are limited there. And I think that what the select board will be dealing with at next week's meeting is whether we should allow the voters to have the ability to add a transfer fee similar to what they were looking at in Great Barrington. And the benefit of that, frankly, is that, prices are through the roof in the last 10 years. I mean, a lot of our houses have doubled in value or more in Stockbridge. And I think that we want to kind of take a hard look at whether or not, addressing the impacts of those price increases is reasonable. But
There is the local preference issue, so that up to 70% of units in an affordable housing development can be set aside for those who live, work, or children go to school in the area at initial occupancy.
area, not town.
No, town. For those who live in town or work in town or whose children attend local schools, they can get local preference. So you have we have a lottery, there's separate pools for those gaining local preference. So there are some ways to actually,
But I thought you couldn't limit it to town. I thought it was more like the regional.
no, it's the town. It's the community.
Okay.
Yep.
but you use the word on the initial.
Initial occupancy. As units turn over one by one, it's a different situation. You can't control for who's going to be there. Chances are when you look at wait lists, though, the wait lists are heavily kind of, including local people. But nevertheless, it's initial occupancy.
Did you say 80 or 70?
70%, it's up to 70%.
But those units do turn over people move on, lives change.
You know, not ownership units that much, rentals, even, some rentals in town, it depends on the condition of the rental. I mean, if it's a nice rental unit, the turnover is much less than if it's not. But what are the options? If you want to stay in your town and you have kids going to school, what are the options? So it's that piece too that informs people's interest in whether they want to stay place or go someplace else that might be nicer, but not in the community. Anyway, it's not a straightforward issue.
If the school plan changes, which is what's going to be the subject of the next meeting, correct? Then I would assume, was it 9 or 8 towns?
8 towns.
You can live in any one of the 8 towns and go to the one school system we're going to have.
Yeah, but we have school choice now, so people can always choice in. It's tremendously expensive for the town when they decide to do that because, this year that added 1% to our taxes because, and this isn't bad. Kids should be able to go to vocational schools. I'm glad we're building some. But, just 2 students going to Taconic, including the bus fare, get them there, the cabs every day, 40 grand a student.
Wow.
How many?
40,000.
We had 2 students who choiced into Taconic for their vocational. It was either Taconic or McCann and, $80,000 extra on the budget.
80,000.
For 2 kids.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, so 40,000.
So no, I'm just addressing that, the ability to go to the school doesn't change, but the economics of what it takes to go there do. Yeah.
But if this new school program goes through, there'll just be one system for all the towns.
For 8, yeah.
I mean, for all the 8.
Yeah.
So,
Hey, this used to be Williams High, this building we're in
Yep.
now. If we hadn't gone to Berkshire Hills, we have 100 kids or so in the school system now from Stockbridge. We'd have like 6 kids per class. It'd be like a Little House on the Prairie.
well, hopefully that'll change.
We'll become 3.
Trying to make that happen.
Janet, Michaela, and I guess Karen, it's really fascinating information. What do you want us to do for next steps, or what specific, do you want specific responses? I don't exactly know what our responses are going to be.
I think that the survey is really intended to inform us of, and be input to our process. It's not to dictate, what we end up doing. I think the next steps in our whole housing production plan process would be that we need to do a section, according to Karen, that looks at what are the obstacles for us moving forward, and then what mitigating factors are we trying to do to address?
We need a section on the challenges to producing affordable housing and mitigation measures that the town is either doing as part of the housing plan or doing, as part of other town efforts. And have to document that. Part of that, typically I would do a zoning review. So kind of a summary of where zoning is at, any measures that might be helpful in supporting affordable housing, and those measures that might be problematic in kind of disincentives for affordable housing. And then usually there's going to be an infrastructure challenge. There's environmental challenges. Usually there's some community perceptions issues. The schools is not an issue here. Some schools, with more development, they're worried about capacity issues. Doesn't sound like that's an issue here. Transportation can be an issue. So anybody who has any information that would be helpful to, let me know, who to contact, where to look for those kinds of range of issues, that would be great. If anybody wants to take on one of those lovely little categories, that's fine too. But that would be the next section that we would do. And then we would move on to the housing strategies. And, we've heard through the workshop, through the survey, through our own discussions, our last meeting, when everybody went around and shared what they thought were kind of priority considerations. That's really helpful. I've been hearing you also throughout meetings. So I think the next step would be for me to take a stab at assimilating that information in a reasonable format that would talk, and then come up within about a month or so with a draft that you guys can do with what you may, and really digest, have enough time ahead of time to digest it, tweak it. You decide, you don't want to do that. Yes, this is good. I do think, what I often do in these drafts though, is I'm going to have like questions, comments, but thought, I need guidance on this. I heard opposite kinds of thoughts about this issue. Where can I get more information on this? So there'll be plenty of kind of ways that we're, holes and questions to kind of go through then. And we can then work towards finalizing a document and scheduling another community meeting to present the draft, get more comments, make whatever changes you think are worthwhile, and then ultimately the plan presented to the planning board and the select board for approval before it can be submitted to the state.
Two suggestions. One is, on this document, if we're going to publish this, I think we should sort.
Oh, it's not done yet. This is just what I pulled together from the raw data yesterday.
I think we should sort the answers by most highest score to lowest score.
Yeah, and Jan
So
did
people
that
see-
in the,
okay.
in the PowerPoint. Yeah, we'll be doing that. It was just kind of a rough
Okay.
going through the raw data. And there'll be a lot more summary information, and we're planning to kind of attach this as part of the housing plan. But yeah, this is just a start with.
And Berkshire County towns, not cities, which ones have housing production plans on file?
Yeah, I can easily find that.
Because I found Sheffield's on the mass.gov website over the weekend.
I have a list.
I know, I'm just saying that it might be great if each of us would pick one and read it and sort of look for ideas or approaches that we may have not thought of. And, because they're all dealing with the same local issues we are. And if they've already written theirs, I think it'd be great if we kind of.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Lennox is,
I know Lennox has one. I now know Sheffield has one. Great Barrington has one. Those are three I already know.
I think Williamstown.
Probably.
But
It's great when you have interns.
Lennox is about 5 or 6 years old, but I think they did a new one. Is that right, Jan?
I think so. I think that's a very good suggestion, Patrick, and maybe Karen, if you could put together the list for us and send it around of where they are.
Yeah.
And then maybe everyone would take at least one, sign up for one that you could read and see if there are any ideas and bring it back at our next meeting. That would be a very good.
Well, you know what, though? I mean, the timing on this,
That's why I was kind of.
yeah, so if I'm in the process of drafting a plan, and all of you guys are looking at other plans for ideas, and we discuss all that, I don't want to be wasting my time. It potentially extends the process. It'd be useful for people to review it and say, oh, this is a good idea. Karen, you should include this after the discussion instead of, I can still go, I think I have a sense of what should be included, but, I don't want to be spending time on a draft and all of a sudden everybody said, oh, we need to do this, we add and we take this out, and you know what I'm saying?
But I think if we could get the list in the next, by, early next week.
I can give you the list tomorrow.
Yeah, because we're now 4 to 6.
And we could just say by next Friday, everybody should pick one and read it and send you comments if there is, as well
That
as.
would be better, because then, I can kind of, look and make sure that those things are covered.
Okay.
And also it offers some good models. I mean, I was planning on contacting a lot of those communities anyway, because I want to learn more about some of the projects that they have. So, I was going to be contacting those anyway, but, can provide some additional information on models.
Okay.
So the ones we know are Great Barrington, Lenox, Williamstown, Sheffield, you said, Patrick?
Yeah, that's the one that, yep.
Does anyone know anything else?
Some out on the Cape. I think Brewster is one that you did, Karen, right?
A long time ago, I just did, we don't want to do
Yeah, ones that
Cape
you've done,
ones.
don't help you.
Yeah, I mean, really, I've done just recently, Yarmouth, Bournes, Sandwiches, Easthams. I'm doing another one for Eastham. I've done almost all the Cape communities, but recently those in the last year. So, I think that the Cape experience really, the models out there are very informative for what's happening here. So that's a really good thing. But if, we can get some specific information about Berkshire-based communities, that would be
Yeah.
great.
I do think the difference that I've noticed in the Cape and here, I don't know if you've noticed it more I know on the islands, they're not concerned as much with density. They are concerned with aesthetics. So they spend their focus on what materials you can use to build a house, what things have to be made of, but you can throw up a lot of like large ADUs and you can build up and you can make a property quite filled in terms of density there.
Well,
That isn't.
I haven't done much work in
solve the problem.
I haven't done
It's
any
just-
much work in Nantucket, but I've done a lot of work in Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah.
And there are some new projects that involve some density that are really terrific. I mean,
Yeah.
they have smaller projects too. They have middle-sized projects.
Right.
There's a whole range.
Yeah.
Have they put any affordable housing on?
They've done a lot of more affordable.
Their affordable housing is,
They've got some good groups. Do they need more?
Not really
Yes.
affordable.
Yeah, I mean,
Nantucket starts around 700, 800.
I see.
oh yeah, I mean,
But what's affordable in Martha's Vineyard?
well, they have units that they put on the subsidized housing inventory. So they have Dukes County Regional Housing Authority that has done a lot of work. They have Island Housing Trust, which has done a lot of work. They've had, towns have partnered with developers from off Cape who've come in and done some terrific projects. So, I mean, they have some very good local resources that have partnered with other developers, and they have some really good examples, but,
Yeah.
the need so far
Oh, yeah.
upstairs. What they've done, I mean, with the median house prices at $2 million, I mean, they can't, and they're in a crisis.
Yeah,
They
Nantucket's
can't,
median is
same thing.
6 million.
People can't, who work,
Million is the
Oh,
median.
they take the ferry over every day.
no, it's terrible.
6.7.
The
that's been that
hospital
way for
can't find
years.
doctors
Yeah.
because they can't afford housing in the community.
Yeah.
So.
But they ruled down, they knocked down any STR regulations this summer. Like they said, no, we're not regulating them. Basically.
So to come back to Patrick's suggestion, maybe we focus, each of us take one and you can pick which one you want to do and then just send your assessment if there's anything that we should be considering or that Karen should be considering and
Yeah, and
and try to do that in the next week so that we have.
that would be really, really great, yeah. And if,
There's nothing in that report, then just say there's nothing new that that isn't already on the table for discussion here.
I'd be happy to take Lenox if somebody, who would take Great Barrington, just so we know. Anyone volunteering for Great Barrington?
I'll take Great Barrington.
Okay. Williamstown?
Williamstown.
Okay. Mark? Sheffield? Patrick, you want Sheffield?
I'm not taking one.
You're not taking one?
I have the school district merger and the Houstonic Water Works next week, and
Okay.
I'm swamped, so.
I'll do that.
You want to do two?
No, I'll do the Sheffield one.
Sheffield?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Bruce, you want one? You want Martha's Vineyard?
I don't think Martha's Vineyard would be very helpful.
Very useful.
If I find another one, I'll let you know.
I think it would be better on the housing, if there's approaches in the Cape that you two think are salient to our challenges
yeah.
here. I think we should have a session on that. I think that would be much more helpful to hear, kind of get that sense of what those ideas are, because you live there and you've been working on all these plans. I'd rather just get.
Like some, I mean, it's an interesting place. There's definitely a lot of differences, but there are some things that are.
What?
Yeah.
Are we
I
talking?
think that community in New York that was on the video.
Oh,
Yeah.
That was cool.
if they have a housing production plan?
Well, they do, we know they do, because they.
Which one? Are you talking about the
they built
one?
all those units.
Well, no, New York does not have housing production requirements. They don't have Chapter 40B, so they might be doing housing plans, but they're not doing housing production plans.
Well, this community did, certainly. The community on the video, certainly, the.
And business
but
plan,
not
it's
in the
not,
same
it's
way.
a, it's a legal document.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
You know, it seems to me when I was going, thought about drafting this, I was going to, refer to certain strategies or models that are on the Cape. I mean, I get, if you want me to hold off on doing that and have the next meeting be just on me providing you a list of strategies that have been applicable to the Cape, plus what work you have, and we go through that, that would be fine. It's just, it's another month, and that's fine. I mean, it's the process, this is your process. But I'm not going to start drafting something and then all of a sudden we're talking about a whole host of other things and.
Well, the reason I bring up the Cape is when I first met Michaela, she's talking about Nantucket, about the camping that's required for local workers in the center of the island and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I asked you, I don't know if you remember, I said, how many years back do you have to go back where Nantucket then was at the relative point in time that Stockbridge is now? And you immediately responded 20 years.
Yeah, at least.
And
It might be
maybe it's
more.
30, but maybe
Yeah.
it's, whatever.
Yeah.
The point I'm making is that we have time to manage, to learn from their successes and their mistakes. And I think that's why, because resort communities are so similar in nature, and because places like Provincetown and some of the other towns in the Cape are seeing such extreme challenges right now around affordability of workers and all the rest of it. Let's kind of figure out what they did right and what they did wrong and, inform our debate. That's kind of,
But we are really a resort community, which is
We are.
why we have so many second home owners.
Oh, yeah.
And
oh, yeah, we definitely are.
we weren't always.
No, but
And whether it will revert to that again is highly questionable. And if you look at what's happened to Nantucket, you might look at Nantucket and say, Stockbridge may be 20 years behind, but it's going to follow the same trajectory.
but,
Well,
And even if it does, we still have to plan for how we keep it going because we need places for people to live. We need, whatever comes here, we need the homes for people to work here to make it happen.
you want some social economic diversity and you want, some, residents to be able to stay here if they want to. It's very hard.
yeah, and there's a reason why, if you look up Massachusetts suicide rates, they have to put a logarithmic scale to create the categories. Because in eastern Massachusetts, like Boston area, it's like 0 to 4 suicides per 100,000. And in the Cape and Berkshire County, it goes up to 84 per 1,000. And to actually make the curve, they have to basically compress the 84 down to something that'll fit on the same chart as the 4. It's called a logarithmic scale. And there's another reason why you want to have robust communities. It doesn't mean it's not us against them or any of that. this well-rounded community thing is important for people's quality of life, because I don't know why.
Yeah.
I think the marshes are beautiful. I can't imagine killing myself here, but boy, they do it in droves compared to other parts of the state where there's, communities.
Yeah. And the challenge is too, I think that this is like, it's easy for us to sort of, not that we do, but like, it's easier to digest if we like put things in buckets, but the housing and the job situation is one thing. It really is one holistic problem to solve. Because if you don't have jobs that pay a reasonable amount, you can't afford to live here.
But we've talked about before, some major population centers that are like 45 minutes away.
Right.
They have jobs.
Yeah, jobs within a reasonable.
Commuting from West Newton to Boston, it takes 45 minutes each day.
Yeah, exactly.
New York, I could see where I worked and it still took me 45 minutes to get there. It took 45 minutes to get anywhere in New York. I mean.
Yeah, it's so true.
Listen, when I lived in Lexington, it took me 45 minutes to get into Boston.
That's right. Oh, yeah.
When I lived
8 miles away.
Or more. Oh, yeah.
When I was 12 and I lived in the house I live in now, it took me an hour to get to Cyril's Middle School. So there's that commute.
It's Route 2 backs up.
No, you had to take 2 buses. There was a connecting bus.
Crazy.
Okay, so shall we say that we want to have a meeting in 2 weeks, let's say, and have a discussion?
But we don't
about-
have, Liz is going to
You
Greece.
can always have this meeting without.
You're going to Greece too?
I can't imagine that we could have a meeting without you.
Where are you going?
Right, the
Why can't
theater,
we
the
talk to you
theater
about
and the real estate business must be really great. I've got just one last comment on this I think we should just mention, if you don't mind.
They haven't seen this. They've only
haven't
seen
seen
the
this?
summary. No, they've just seen the summary.
Oh, sorry. I came in late. I didn't know that. Points 11 and 12 are fascinating. 14% plan to move out of town, and not sure is another 25. So that's 4 and 10 are either not sure or plan to move out of town. And 75% of them cite housing and living costs too high.
Yep.
So that means that even if you just count the yeses, that is 1 in 10 residents are considering moving because housing costs are too high. And if you were to add the not sures in, it moves up to 1 in 4. A little quick math for you. That's kind of, that's something that we're gonna have to talk about at some point.
There's also somewhere in the survey, Patrick, if I'm right, that when you ask the question of, where they're saying that they will not move out, but why they consider it because the prices are very high, but still they will not move out.
Yeah, no, that's the majority, but it's a significant minority of the folks who are kind of looking at cost of living issues,
And a lot don't move out because they can't find another place to live that's
That's right.
affordable.
Right.
Where you go?
Not in Massachusetts.
Or anywhere,
Anywhere on the East Coast, for sure.
or anywhere in the country. It's
Well, I don't know
happening
what we're gonna do
everywhere.
about cost of living. I mean, cost of living is up everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
Can't move someplace and get away.
Because I had a
What eggs
proposal.
cost.
There's some affordability in Ludlow, I gotta say.
I'm sure there is.
But still, people in Ludlow are still having a hard time.
It's like a
affording
commute
it.
from like her
There's
neighborhood
probably
to Newton.
affordability in Athol too, but
I just spent last night in Athol. I'm doing their plans,
I don't
yeah.
want to live in Athol.
There's some very nice places. It's,
I
yeah.
mean, I can. I'm not
problem is,
really
that's
gonna
exactly
do
the problem.
notes
It's so great here.
from
Yeah.
when I'm
That
gone,
creates
but I can
demand.
look
That's
at
right there.
the meeting when I come back.
Because it's so
and
beautiful,
write it
it's
up.
going to attract
Yeah,
visitors.
it's
It's going
beautiful
to
and
continue.
convenient.
You're not attending well.
these
I want to go to Tank Woods, it's a 2-minute
Yeah.
drive versus an hour, all those places. People were stuck in traffic, time stuck, people were stuck in traffic this year. It doesn't happen if you live.
One
like-
person in.
Yeah.
All right, what is I didn't put any dates down for possible next meeting. So what kind of action do we need to do next? I guess Michaela and Janet.
Well, I think the suggestion was we have a meeting in a couple of weeks to talk about what we've learned from other programs and what are the components. And maybe Karen, you could help lead that part of it. What are the things that we specifically want to include in the plan?
Yeah, I can provide kind of a list of things that either I've heard here through some, outreach or meetings or whatever. And some examples from the Cape that might be worth discussing. I have to say ahead of time, though, it is really hard to get consensus from everybody on everything that's going to be included in the plan. So
You could have
that's
stopped that
something,
sentence a few words
some
earlier.
places have tried to,
After consensus, you should have put a period. I mean, it's really hard to get consensus.
yeah.
Period.
Yeah. So
Doesn't matter what the subject matter is.
I think that's
And
always
yet,
true.
We have the bandwidth to one or two things, and we're going to have to make the hard choices on what those one or two things are.
Right.
So that's our job, you know?
So my question would be, Karen, what kind of time do you think you need before the next meeting?
Oh, I'm going to just kind of provide a general list and some models for consideration. I'm not going to start drafting
No, I
the
wouldn't.
individual strategies until we've had that discussion.
And four people are looking up the HPPs next week. You want to do it 2 weeks from now? That way it just keeps the ball rolling.
Can we, Bruce, are you willing to read one?
They're all taken.
Well, can we think of another, there's more. We just,
Really?
If I find another one in the Berkshires, I'll contact Bruce.
all right.
This may be heretical, but I would like
Heretical or theoretical?
Theoretical.
heretical.
Heretical, okay, then now that,
I'm interested.
Side of,
I would really like us to have one thing that we actually start to do. You know, just to dip our, not just a toe, but a foot in the water and
just give us another couple weeks.
get something going. I mean, I've told people for decades that there's a reason I went into emergency medicine for my medical career. I never outgrew my infantile inability to delay gratification. And I, you know, we've talked about a lot of things and there's a lot of ideas that have been thrown out. Let's do something. One thing. Pick a thing.
You have something in mind?
You know,
Mark sent a report on trying to get some progress in these block grants, because we got that grant and we're going to try to do that. We're in discussions about a land donation. There's a lot of things going on, but I think it's really important. This has only been in existence for, what is it, 6, 8 months now, 10
No,
months?
it's almost.
A year, all right, but the first project, the first thing we voted in, even before this was founded, was the select board voted in funding for this housing production plan. Because the purpose of that is to build consensus, not just among the 7 of us, but with the town of what our priorities should be. And if we don't go through a process to bring the town along with us, it's just so important to do that. It's just so
I'm
important.
sure it is.
You know? So this process will be over in 3 or 4 months, and that will inform what those 1 or 2 things are.
And the other things that are happening
Yeah.
behind the scenes will happen too.
Now, meanwhile, we can start building the 2 extra floors on this building. I think that's easy. There's no more
Great,
density.
Patrick, next subject.
You know, somebody mentioned, you know, the issue, I think Karen mentioned the issue of doctors at Martha's, or somebody.
Yeah,
Karen did.
yeah, Martha's Vineyard,
I know it's not,
their cottage hospital,
yeah,
cottages.
cottage hospital, owned by Mass General Brigham.
Right.
Is it really?
Yes, thank God, I used it this summer.
Yes.
They were
They
great.
bought it a number of years ago and have dumped a ton of money into it to upgrade the facility and everything else. It's not a long-term thing, but in the summertime, they basically have housing that they provide
Yeah.
to the doctors that they encourage to come over and work there.
Not a lot, but they do.
Many employers.
Yeah.
I mean, the docs in my emergency department, you know, almost every one of them would take a month off in the summer and they'd go work on Martha's Vineyard and they'd stay in this nice house on the vineyard and they'd pull their emergency department shifts, 5 or 6 of them a week, and rest of the time they and their family would be out on the beach and South Beach and every place else in there.
And that's happening a little bit here.
And I don't know whether we have any potential to do that. Is there anything that we can provide where, particularly for some of the seasonal employees that we need.
Anything.
Yeah.
Anything,
That
whatever
we
you
can
can do.
provide housing.
Barrington did the kind of community, so they converted that motel
Town
into sort of housing with
Town hall.
community kitchens and bathrooms.
Yeah.
I mean, it's conceivable, but you gotta find the property and it's a hit or miss.
I'm sure it is. Well, I mentioned to Randy a while ago, I mean, it's in
637.
Lenox. It's in Lenox, but there's that one motel on
Big
the,
help, thanks.
on the left side of Lenox Pittsfield Road as you're heading up towards Pittsfield. It looks like it's.
Wagon wheel?
Is it Wagon Wheel?
I think so.
And it looks like COVID killed it.
And I have no reason for knowing that, I swear to God.
We haven't, through all the process, though, any information that housing for seasonal workers is a great need, So also you can't
talk
have
talk to
those.
the restaurant owners and you would basically find that that's not the case.
But it's,
Yeah, that
the restaurant owners are dying.
Yeah,
the businesses need places for
they do.
their
And but,
workers.
there was something was bought, the Windflower Inn in Great Barrington was bought, and it has like 17 rooms, and there are a couple of buildings on it, and that's what they're using it for. It's housing for people in their restaurants.
But it's something, it's something that one could do for that. And then maybe it's a model that we can use for full-time workers.
Well, it was, it was private, I believe it was privately done. And if we can encourage that kind of thing, I mean, I always feel bad if something comes up for sale in Stockbridge, it's like, oh, there's another family home and I watch it go. It's like, oh, God, I don't know how do we keep them for people who really want to live here?
Yeah.
Well, let's do a calendar.
It's important that we think of things in macro percentage thinking. The individual, when we start talking about a house, it's like Buzzy Bonson used to live there, or the Drummonds used to live here. The problem with thinking that way is that it creates a subtle demonization of the folks who might have bought it. And there's nothing wrong with buying any individual property. What we have to do is have a mix of strategies, whether it's building some new stuff or a little bit of a fighting chance and edge with some policy, who knows what, that the mix together maintains the relative percentages at a target level. And if it's, if we're making it, if it makes it unattractive as a community for second homeowners, because this is a very successful town the way it is right now. So we don't want to move the needle too much one way or the other, but what's more likely is we're going to see erosion in the percentages. And that's why I think the same thing. Every time I drive down from my house to here, I think about the people who used to live in these houses, but I don't like to have that frame
But
the
it's not-
debate.
I know, but there's just that missing piece where the character of the town is just, it's not what it.
Okay,
Don't go to the post office and see somebody you know.
When I was back here, you might have noticed, we took the fence out around the old ball field. And I say old ball field because when I was a kid, I played for the Interlaken Indians, not very well, by the way. And but we had the Stockbridge Braves and the Interlaken Indians and the Stockbridge Yankees, and there was teams in West Stockbridge, and we had a little league, right? There's no teams in Stockbridge now. And what goes away when you don't have little league? It wasn't just all the parents would show up on a Saturday afternoon and hang out together, and all the kids would learn from their coach, and coaches got a chance to coach, and umpires got a chance to be jerks, and all the rest of it. But the fact is, like, you lose community when things like that don't have the critical mass.
Yep.
And I just point that out because that's kind of, that's why kind of maintaining, it's all really the schools and, I just feel like we got to kind of keep
The life here.
Get a
How
balance.
about life? Young life, because we have,
I think
our population is aging. Where are we going?
moving on.
We're done.
Because we're dreaming.
Okay.
Oh.
And I think the summary, well, first of all, to thank Michaela, Jan, and Karen for a lot of work pulling all that together. You've sent it to us, we can all see it in our email.
Yeah,
So
I'd like to look at it more closely.
take a look at it more closely. And when,
What are you talking about, the survey results?
What we were showing, what I was,
Except they're not done, right?
Yeah,
I just sent the slideshow that we were sharing earlier that Jan sent.
That's great. And we will be, when we get the hard copy, we insert those numbers. We're going to take basically this and This is just the first draft. We're going to be reorganizing and reformatting, somewhat adding some summary information. So you should have that also the next time we meet.
Liz,
Whenever that is.
You need to meet before then.
just give me the date you're back.
The 17th.
Right, we'll meet before you get back. All right, so,
Where are you going?
Jan, are Thursdays or Mondays better for you?
Mondays would be
Preferable?
better.
Okay, so 2 weeks away would be October 9th.
I can't do it.
You're not here.
It's Columbus Day.
Oh, that's a holiday, forget that, okay.
I think I could do that Tuesday, the
The
10th.
10th, what about the 10th?
I have a meeting at 6,
Okay,
my local housing trust.
all right.
I'm going to be at a medical conference.
Till
all
when?
week.
That whole week, you're
Yeah.
gone?
We do the 16th, the Monday, the 16th.
What about
Greece, no doubt?
the 17th? Why don't you pull it,
Philadelphia,
why don't you pull it back?
far from Greece.
Because now, if you get to the 16th, you're 4 weeks out. Why don't you pull it back to the 11th or the 4th or something like that?
Well, the 2nd, that's 2 weeks.
That's a little over a week and a half.
That's a week and a half, okay.
But you'd still have all the information that you're looking for.
We'll just have to have all those
Who can-
reports read and summarized by
Who
the end of next week.
who can't come on the 2nd?
Me.
Just Liz. Jan, could you do that?
I think I can do that. Yeah.
Okay, because we know we're missing Liz, we can miss one more, but
October
I don't like to
This is a
meet.
few projects, so yeah.
So October 2nd?
Oh,
Is that okay for you?
Yeah.
I
Can you
think
do that?
I'm okay the second.
Yeah, no, we can't do it that night.
Why?
Because the finance committee's going to be meeting in this room on the presentation on the regional school district merger.
Oh.
And it's, yeah,
When's the town meeting?
23rd.
how about Thursday, the 5th?
I can't do, I have a meeting at 6.
Okay,
Or Wednesday. Wednesday's usually pretty, we can't do Wednesday the 4th because that's the Mahawi public meeting for the plan, the merger.
all right, going back, what's wrong with the 2nd? You can't come, Karen?
I can come on the 2nd.
No, he was saying the merger.
Finance committee.
No, the
Well,
finance-
we can meet in the other room,
No,
Patrick.
no, this is something I think a lot of people are going to want to hear.
Oh,
And Patrick won't be here and I won't be here and.
okay, all right, so just one, it's just a one night, right?
What's the agenda for the next meeting?
The agenda of the next meeting is to have read these plans and start to fashion,
Just read the other plans.
yeah,
Like,
other-
it's one each.
yeah.
Okay.
And to discuss what are the suggestions coming out of reading those plans for things that we might consider.
The
How about
12th?
from today then?
I'm going to have a list too.
Yeah.
How about the 12th?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can you do the 12th? Jan, can you, that's a Thursday.
To do that.
I don't think I can. I have a question mark, but I think that.
There's a
I
select
have
board
it.
meeting at 6:30, but if it starts at 4, I can do it.
What about the 5th? Did we say something's wrong?
I could do if it was 4 o'clock
but on the 5th?
on the 12th.
Karen, you can do no. All right, what about the 5th?
Karen can't do the 5th.
I can't do the 5th. I have a
Can't do
meeting
the
at 6.
Sorry, all right.
Sorry.
Okay, what about the 12th?
I can do the 12th if it's 4, if it's
Oh,
early.
no, you can't do the 12th. You're in Philadelphia.
No, that's the last day. I'm good. My meeting goes from the 9th to the 12th. So the 12th, I'm done.
You're gonna be home?
I'm done early afternoon.
I know,
So you
but
can't-
here.
I think a little-
No, I'll be in Philly, but I'll be on Zoom.
Oh, okay. All right.
Just so Karen doesn't lose time, what we could do is we just scheduled a 5-minute Zoom meeting sometime that week. That would give us the ability to do a packet. And people could then take their comments and in PDF, just highlight in yellow the parts they think are important. And that would at least get Karen some feedback that we could then talk about the 12th or whatever. but it would give like kind of the summary of what's important. So as you're going through the PDF of what you're reading, if there's like a paragraph that's great, highlight it. We schedule a meeting. We have a packet that has all the highlighted copies.
The
And
PDF, you're gonna do just the page where the paragraph is? Or you're gonna be sending whole documents, so I mean,
No,
you send it
just
to,
a page,
just.
an appropriate page.
Copy it and
I think we can just transcribe like a paragraph for you that,
That would be.
just like a little
Deal with
summary
documents.
that might be good, we can send to you.
That's,
Do you want to pick a date that we'll send everything to Karen?
yeah, but I really think that you guys need to have a discussion about it. Me sorting through 20 different recommendations is just not, it's going to be, if you want me to pick and choose, I can do that, but
these plans are what, 200 pages, 100 pages? It's only 4,000 pages of reading.
it depends.
Come on.
I know, it depends.
Well,
I would just skip to the summary strategy section.
I read War and Peace in college. Thank you very much.
So he's
So
fully
we're
equipped.
looking at the 12th at 4, is that what we're looking at?
but you
we're
can't,
looking at.
we were looking at the 12th, but
I can do 4 o'clock. I have a meeting at 7 on the 12th.
okay. Patrick? The 12th?
The 12th, I have a meeting here at 6:30, so as long as we
Well, that's
wrap it
good.
up by 6.
Okay, so we'll do 4 to 6 here. 12th, Bruce is in Philadelphia, he'll be here, and
On Zoom.
Jen, you can do it either present or Zoom. And okay.
Yep, I'm here, yep.
The 12th at 4 here, and bring your comments, okay?
Yes, and Karen will send something in advance of that, which has the suggestions that you were going to bring also.
Yeah, I'm going to include some suggestions too.
Right. And that can go to up to 3 people on this board. Oh, well, if you're sending them up to 2 others. So,
What?
no, you should probably have the 2 folks who are going to receive those be decided upon now.
Well, Jan and Michaela, people send it to them.
So everyone's got to send them to
Yeah.
Jan and Michaela, but nobody
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
Then they can send it out?
No, they can't send it out. That's the whole point.
It's
You
not-
cannot have it, it's considered deliberation. It's a violation of the open meeting law.
What if she sends some suggested things for us to think about?
Well, as long as, if it's coming from the consultant, it's okay. But the point is, it can't come from us to the consultant and then get distributed to the board. It's called serial communication.
Right,
Yeah.
you're gonna send it to Karen and that's
then we'll
it.
have
You're
a
not
talk
gonna
about it.
CC to anybody else.
No, can we CC to Jan and Michaela, as long as it's not a quorum of the board.
That's what I mean, what
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
saying.
yeah.
All right, so everyone reads your assignment, sends whatever comments you may have to Karen, CCing Jan and Michaela.
Yes, good.
Okay.
But someone will say.
And then we're going to meet on the 12th at 4
Yep.
in this room. Okay? We have a couple more things, a couple more important things, not more important than this, but important things. Mark, could you give us a
Yes,
report on?
there'd been some discussion recently. It was a newspaper article. I think Kate Fletcher even sent an article around, or sent an email to everybody about this community development block grant money that might be available for home rehabilitation for, say, a new roof or a boiler or something.
That was going to be one of my recommendations.
Okay,
In
well,
one already.
this is,
Oh, that's right, the regional thing.
this goes back to fiscal year 2020. So right, when COVID was hitting, it's a federal community development block grant that the state then gives out, and then a local community becomes sort of the bank for it, exactly. But to complicate it further, it's administered by the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission. So applications go into the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission. Unfortunately, Stockbridge only had 3 or 4 people that applied. Only one person was income eligible, and she did not pursue the application. This is according to Patricia Mullins, who is the Community Development and Housing Program Manager for the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission. She said that the funds have now all been allocated. There were
We lost it?
no projects in Stockbridge, and the program's over. Done, over and done.
That's so disappointing.
And she didn't give us a heads up and say, you better get some applicants, because that money was directed towards Stockbridge. We applied for a grant together.
Yeah, there were 4 towns. Dalton was the lead town. It was sort of their grant, under which, though, Sheffield, Stockbridge, and Beckett were all involved. And they did advertise it. There were newspaper articles about it. There were 3 or 4 applicants from Stockbridge. As I said, only one qualified by income, and she didn't want to keep going on it, according to Patricia Mullins. She called me, I'd left a message. She called me back today, left me a long voicemail. I was out cutting my grass, so I didn't get to talk to her, but she was very detailed in her message. And she said that, unfortunately, and she was sad to pass on the news, that the grant has closed and all the funds have been allocated. She did encourage me to call her back so we can establish a contact and be aware of future things. But there were no improvements made. There would have only been it was $1.3 million. They estimated it would be, provide services to 20 homeowners in the 4 towns.
Yeah, but 4 or 5 homes is like people ride around and look at, like, you can tell which houses need the help. You don't need to advertise in a paper. It's one of the first things people cut when they're short of money is the $200, $300 a year newspaper subscription. That's why so many people get ripped off with grifts. We advertised in the paper was her answer.
She left me a message. I didn't get to quiz her on what kind of marketing was done. She said, it's too bad that our trust wasn't in existence at that time, because we could have helped to promote it locally and there would have been more chance to,
Yeah.
It's too bad when the deadline was approaching, she didn't call a couple of people in the town and said.
Well, I can add just some additional information, which is, that was like, our share of that should have been something of the order of $330,000 to 5 houses. And anybody who owns a house and you have a chance, it's not a grant, it's a loan, a 0 interest loan.
Deferred.
And I think it's 7 or 8 years.
I think if you stay in the property for 15 years, it's forgiven.
It's forgiven.
After 15 years.
Oh, it is forgiven.
Oh, yeah, it was a good deal.
Deferred through then, yeah.
So,
Well, here's what happened, just a second, let me finish this, if you don't mind, Bruce.
you're the chair, do whatever you want.
Mike Canales was instrumental, no, it happened before we got Mike.
What?
Well, when did Mike come? He's only,
Joined in September 2020.
okay. This happened, I think, before, was applied for before he knew about it. There's a box in his office with a little slit. People were supposed to put their names in the box in his office. Somehow, I don't know how they found out to put their names in a little slot in his office. And those 4 or 5 cards were given to these people, and I think that's who she's.
Yeah, because
Speaking
Michael
about-
did say, we talked to him earlier today about this, he did say that there were several applicants. This was a story in the Berkshire Eagle, March 2nd, 2021. 9 Berkshire communities get over $3.5 million in grants for housing infrastructure improvements. And they were broken down by different towns, and we were in with 3 other towns led by Dalton. Dalton, Beckett, Sheffield, and Stockbridge will receive $1.3 million for housing rehab assistance to 20 units and some American Disabilities Act compliance in Dalton, Beckett, and Stockbridge. So in March of 2021, this was still very active, and they were putting the word out. And again, several people from Stockbridge applied, and only one
What
qualified.
they also did is then COVID hit and they delayed the whole thing 18 months
Yeah.
and they lost that momentum.
Yeah.
And did we get any coverage or any outreach that when they resurrected? Because you couldn't apply for a big period of time there. They were basically like, well, we're not implementing this.
I'll try to find out more about that when I'm going to call this Patricia back. She just left me. She was very nice to get back to me because I had left word that I was having a meeting today, and she made a point of getting to me. And
Do another round.
yeah.
Right, for more
And
money.
I want to understand where in the law we applied for that grant, not Dalton. Dalton was the administrator of the grant.
Right.
We applied for that grant, and I want to know where they had the authority to take money that was earmarked for this town and spend it in other towns. And I'm not kidding, I want the answer to that
All
question.
right. Well, I mean, maybe you'll have to pursue that as a selectman and,
I'm happy to.
But the thing is, I don't think we were shut out. It sounds like there were applications and only one qualified for income, and she didn't pursue it. I'm sure there could have been much more of a marketing effort for it than there was, for whatever was happening.
And we've
So
done it.
is this money that the individuals have to apply for, or is this money that comes to us as a trust and then we can figure out
Right.
who?
No, it
didn't
doesn't,
exist
it doesn't, it
then.
wouldn't come to us as a trust. It's federal money, the state then makes the grants, it goes to towns, and then the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission handled the mechanics of taking in the applications, deciding who was qualified.
But it's only individuals that can apply for it.
Yes.
But basically, if your income qualifies, it's the only way someone might be able to paint their house or like fix their roof ever.
Yeah.
It's like awesome. And if you don't plan on selling your house, you get it the money is forgiven. It's federal money. It's forgiven after 5, 10, 8, 15 years, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's a really good, and if it's not forgiven, it comes out of those sale proceeds. So it's a really good deal.
It sounds
for
like a
low-income
great
people.
deal. It's just a shame that the money is not distributed to an entity within the town. And then it becomes that
didn't
entity
exist when-
that has the responsibility for finding the people that can basically take advantage of it. That would be, rather than basically having it just go out to the masses and, and have it be completely dependent upon those individuals, seeing whatever's in the newspaper, if they still get it, and so on and so forth.
Or being able to walk into town hall and say, are there any incentives for me to get some help?
But you remember, there was no walking in. It was 2 years of like.
Well, no, but I'm
Yeah.
saying now.
Yeah.
I'm just
But
saying now.
in the Cape, when they've done these, multi-town CDBG housing rehab programs, and they do divvy it up by a certain amount of money. So each town is allocated a certain amount. So it's not this pot, first come, first served type of thing. So I guess the best thing to do is encourage another round of funding and to really make sure.
Let me comment on that, because very recently, Mary Beth Mintz from Lennox contacted me, and wanted us to go in with them to apply for this very grant. Again, because it's all the time, these things are
We
evolving.
said, and they told us, yeah.
They
And
told-
BRPC said, no, Stockbridge, you're already in the Dalton grant. I
Right.
believe they got that information from BRPC. There's something's going, I'll have to go.
There may be some accounting for this that is $1.3 million. Where did it go?
Yeah.
Did a lot of it go to one town, not to another?
Probably.
There's a little bit of the rest of the county sees us as rich. And there's some wealth here, there's no
And
doubt. But the fact of the matter is that a portion of our population has a median income of $45,000. And that's only, you say it's the median, but if only half the houses are owned by that group, it's really only a quarter of the town, but that's still significant. And we know these people who could use the help. And it's sort of
Right.
disappointing that.
Oh, there's probably a couple of hundred households that might have been eligible, 100 anyway.
Yep.
I think it's more than disappointing. I think this is really
This is a failure. Yeah,
a big,
Yeah.
$330,000 can make a lot of difference.
Yeah, 10 or 15 roofs or a few boilers, or, I mean, it would make a difference.
Painting.
They bring the units up to code.
Right.
Yeah.
So
To the greatest extent possible.
anyway, I think it's wonderful that, Mark, you are on this, and I
Well-
think we need to continue, and perhaps Patrick through this.
Well, I'm going to call her back. I'll have a conversation if I can reach her tomorrow and update you on what I've heard, and then you can pursue it further if you think, as a selectman, you carry some weight. And there's got to be some accounting of these public funds somewhere.
Not just the funds, I want the accounting of the
Process.
disclosure that we're going to lose the grant and the disclosure of what, the process around the notification of us, I think is kind of the thing I want.
What's very disturbing, because the meeting this morning, and you were there for the part of it, we did discuss this a little bit. Michael Canales knew nothing.
Yeah.
He was going to look into it, so they happened to call me back. I have to let,
We're not criticizing Michael, they hadn't told him.
They hadn't called
The
him back,
point that they had made no contact with Michael.
right, and they hadn't called him back either.
Do we have any process in town for when these things come out, that someone assumes responsibility for making sure that the population in town, particularly those
We
people
paid-
that we know.
We paid Berkshire Regional Planning to administer this grant. Their job is to administer the grant, including making sure we don't lose the grant. We paid them out of the grant, we paid them, you can't even pay out of grant proceeds, that's illegal. We paid them to administer the grant.
I understand
We hired
that.
them. That was
I
their job.
understand that, but
Is there someone else?
you know, but to me, it seems like there's some onus on us, even if we've paid them to administer it, that we provide them the names of the people that could be eligible for this so that they can
How
administer.
would you know
that's-
that?
if-
I mean,
if
What's
that's-
that?
how would you know that?
Well,
And the
Patrick says we
professional
know that
planners.
100 people that might
You can't
benefit
say-
from
You don't
it.
want to, look at, the flip side is if you're 2 days away from losing the grant money, I'm going to get on the phone and call some people, but otherwise I'm like using my position of influence to try to get my friends grants. I would never do
No.
that. I would never, ever, ever call someone unless we're desperate at the end. And then probably the person I would call is Carol Owens, so she can blast out to 1,000 people.
She
I'm not
can put
gonna,
it
like,
on, but
you know.
the Stockbridge updates, but just, we need to pull back a little bit. There's two problems. One, we didn't have a town manager administrator during this. I don't know how we even applied without Michael in place, but somehow we did.
Somehow we did, yes.
Somehow, something got done. And then we had Michael, and then we had the pandemic. And then Michael, I had asked Michael a couple times about it, and he kept saying, it's been postponed because of the
But he
pandemic.
knew there were some applicants from our town.
Yes, he knew there were cards in that little slot.
Right. And we don't know the applicants, by the way. The whole reason you have you want to, you don't want, some people don't want to kind of disclose their financial status to their neighbors. So you have an administrator, there was a person up in Dalton, I think, working in the treasurer's office that was going to administer it. They see the applicants. We don't see the applicants.
No, they don't. It was
BRC.
Yeah, Berkshire.
the planning. It was the planning. The only thing Dalton did is they got to keep the money. So I'd like to know who got all the interest on $1.3 million while it's sitting around waiting to be used. That's not
Well,
a small chunk of change.
But they got to keep unspent money?
I don't know where the money.
No,
is
not
parked.
unspent.
Usually grants are reimbursed
let them
after
do
it's
that,
spent. I
yeah.
don't think they got rid of, the federal government.
I'm not
doesn't
saying
write
they
a check.
did got rich, but
No, I'm saying that you don't get the money in advance. The money is reimbursed once
Yeah.
it's just
Once
deployed,
it's spent.
you know?
so they really weren't a bank. They didn't
I
have
don't know. I
anything.
just am saying that,
Typically,
Yeah.
it's not. Speaking of that, Jen, did you want to bring up the bill? We have a bill from Karen. Do we need to approve, Patrick, the payment
you
to?
said for our grant, it's nothing to do with it. I mean, I would approve it and just tell Erica in the treasurer's office that it's.
Okay, but do we need to have a vote to?
No, I mean,
for
the
Jen
money
to-
wasn't appropriated by us. But I would approve it just so you know, just so that, that the work is getting done. You can do that, you don't need a vote. Yeah.
That's the question. Do we need a vote?
I don't know. If you want to ask Michael, I would just
Okay.
send it to him and say, this is Karen's.
Why don't,
We wanna get
why don't we
paid.
just have a contingency vote so that the
Yeah,
vote's
that's a
on the
good idea.
record?
I'd love to pay Karen's bill. I'd make a motion to pay
Gee,
Karen's
thanks,
bill.
Pat.
I second it.
Hey.
Is the bill less than,
Hi,
you know,
Jan.
$1 million?
If we don't need, if we
Michaela.
don't need it, it's a wasted vote, and if we need it, it's
The
there.
question is, it's not, it was money appropriated by the select
Yeah,
board.
it was ARPA money.
To the trust, but you didn't really give us any money. So the
Right.
ARPA money is going to pay the bill, right?
Yeah.
The town pays the bill, yes.
Okay. We have a motion seconded. All those in favor?
I,
Wait a minute, wait a
I
minute.
get to do, I, Jane.
Karen, Jan.
Hi, Michaela.
Aye, Randy.
Hi, Mark.
I, Liz. Patrick.
I said hi, Patrick.
hi, Bruce.
Unanimous.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you all. Okay.
We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Are we ready to adjourn?
No, we're not. I've got a couple of important announcements. One of them is, and I'm waiting to hear, but the lieutenant governor would like to speak to us, all of us. And we are waiting for these, it will be a Zoom meeting. And it will be the lieutenant governor, the head of her Springfield office, and a person who's going to be in the new Department of Housing at the state level. So it's an important group of people, and the purpose of the Zoom meeting is, one, for them to realize that we exist and that we have agendas and objectives to create affordable housing, and for them to tell us how to get money from them. So I hope We will not have it while Liz is gone.
Well, if you do, just let me know when, and as long as it's not at midnight, I'm good. I'm not.
All right,
Franny,
yes.
as a courtesy, make sure we reach out to Senator Mark and Smitty Pignatelli, Representative Pignatelli, and invite them to the session. Because
Okay.
that's kind of how it's done when senior leaders are bringing talking to towns, the legislative team is always invited. That's one thing. And the second thing is that we might want to include Ann Goby. And I've been, she's the rural czar now, the rural affairs director. She was a senator and she was appointed she was recruited to run rural affairs by Mario Lee.
How do
Ann
you,
Goby, G-O-B-I.
GOBI, and where is she, in Boston?
Well, she lives in somewhere in Spencer, I don't know, but I have her contact information.
Okay. I will tell you how this happened. I called the governor's office, not expecting anyone to call me back, to see if I could meet with her when she was here for the Swan Land. And she obviously had a full calendar, but within 20 or 30 minutes, her assistant called me back and said, the lieutenant governor would like to speak to you all. And
What's the tentative date of this?
there isn't one. I'm just saying that I'm waiting. I've talked to her
But if
recently.
it's soon, we have to have a meeting to discuss. We're going to get 15 minutes of time and we need to kind of, if we're not listening, if we're talking, if this is a listening session for her, the things we talked about, we should have at least some discussion what those priorities are. Because,
We need to be consistent
Well,
about our
maybe you can add
presentation.
that to the agenda on the 12th, a meeting to get ready for that meeting,
Once we know.
assuming it doesn't.
But I did talk to her last week, the assistant, and she said, I'm working on it and we do want to have it. And I'm trying to figure it out with their calendar. So I don't hope for maybe within a month, maybe we'll have such an opportunity. But I was impressed that the new administration seems to be somewhat on top of it, and the lieutenant governor is very focused on housing. Now, you had a chance to meet with her.
Yeah, I spent 10 minutes with her.
And
Very nice.
Did you learn anything?
I learned she was the mayor when I lived in Salem, which was great. I told her I voted for her, we don't quite remember, but I think I did. No, I'm kidding. Anyways, we talked about housing stuff. So, they see what's going on out here.
Oh, yeah. And do you have any updates for us from the select board besides the transaction fee?
And that I just want to clarify that we're not endorsing a transfer fee. We're simply trying to join the other 20 or so towns. Steve Bann and I and Lee Davis met with the chair of the Joint Committee on Housing Center, Lydia Edwards, 2 weeks ago. And they've got about 18 to 20 of these transfer fee home rule petitions in. It's really hard to get a home rule petition, which is basically permission to tax for something you don't have permission on. It's writing a law for yourself that isn't on the books. Really hard to get that done. They've gotten so many of these, they're planning on putting them in the housing bond bill. And she said, we're not going to popcorn them, we're going to pass them all at once. So the whole idea for towns is if you want to be able to consider this, you've got to get permission from the legislature as part of this package of these 20 towns. So that's what we're going for. And we'll see if Jamie or Chuck support it. I don't know. We'll decide Thursday.
It's a shame to foreclose the opportunity at this stage.
Right, it's up to the voters eventually, because then if the legislature gives us permission, we'd have to write a bylaw that would go to town meeting that we'd all have a chance to weigh in on. But you're right, foreclose the opportunity.
I think it's unfortunate, but Great Barrington did vote it down.
And didn't vote it down though. They just voted down for that one meeting. They may do a meeting a week later to do it. I've talked to a whole bunch of people on that board. They're not against it. They just, in Great Barrington, the school issue is so important. They didn't want to, dilute what the purpose of that one meeting is, which is to deal with the merger. But I wouldn't be surprised if they schedule a second meeting a week later to deal with this one. It's not.
But what about us? If we're having it on the 24th, our town meeting?
23rd.
23rd.
If
You don't want to put it
Chuck or
on.
Jamie votes yes, then will be able to consider it with the other 20 towns. And if they don't, then they're crazy. Oh, wait, did I say that? I'm sorry. No, if they don't, then, they're
No.
voting their conscience or whatever.
Sorry, let me ask my question again. It has, in order to be considered, first the select board has to put it on
The warrant.
the warrant. If you vote yes, if Jimmy votes yes, then you will put it on the warrant and it'll be at the same town meeting as the school. Is that
Right.
correct?
That's just a request of the legislature to give us permission to craft a bylaw that would
If we want.
include a transfer fee.
Yeah, if we want to.
If we want to, and within certain parameters, that would be a high and a low. Has to be a minimum of 0.5%, maximum of 2%. Yeah, but completely general. Be no decisions. It's
Okay.
just,
So if our select board passes it, then we could see it at the town meeting.
yeah, what you want to see is the bylaw at the next May town meeting, because then, that would give us then the ability to actually do this thing.
But for right now.
Right now, it has to go to this meeting in order to get to town meeting.
And if you kill it, I guess you could have another meeting and unkill it.
Well, except that it's got to go in the package, right? That goes to the state legislature.
Yeah, I mean, you're losing time and unlike Great Barrington, Stockbridge only doesn't have 60-70% of their budget is the schools and their budget's a lot bigger than ours. We just don't have that many kids and where, head count basically determines how much you're paying to the schools. I don't think our town meeting is going to be at all controversial. The town's going to save money and we're going to get a vocational program. It's two big wins. Why vote no against this thing in Stockbridge? Maybe it's different if you're Alford or Sheffield or something, but here, it's not going to be controversial.
Okay, also having several things on the agenda is not a problem.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like, for us, it's like.
The warrant.
Why do two?
Okay, I think that is all I have. Anybody else have any nickels worth of contribution? Okay, we almost made it, Liz.
Motion adjourned.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Hi, Patrick.
Aye, ready.
Thanks.